Yo, check it. Call Lil C's. Tell that motherfucker to bring me some motherfucking weed to the hospital, man. Fuck that. Tell that before to go pick up 10,000 from Dez and go pick up about like 20 G's from Gino. Tell that motherfucker to get this nigga next door. I'm out of here. Nigga be snoring all night. I can't sleep. And call that big butt nurse with the long hair to come suck my dick. Yeah, boy, come on. The doctor said I need about 3 weeks of recovery. But the nurses is loving me, saying the best part of the day is my half. Feeding me breakfast and giving me a sponge bath. Nigga say I died dead in the streets. Nigga, I'm getting high, getting head on the beach. Chillin', sitting on about $500,000. With all my niggas, all my guns, all my women. Next 2 years, I should see about $1 billion. All for the love of drug dealing. Got no love for the other side, fuck them tricks. Any repercussions, Junior Mafia spit clip all the time. Big Papa kick the war around. Raw flows, and that's how it goes.
No, Notorious! Rico, you know what time it is. It's time for season number 3. Yeah, it is time for the Notorious. It is time for
the clinch.
We're stepping on our lines all over the place to start things off. Yeah. But why did I play that song, Rico?
You played that song because it refers to the notorious Conor McGregor out here.
Yeah, my boy.
Names.
Yeah. So, welcome everyone back to The Clinch. This is season number 3, episode 1. We're really looking forward to doing our show today, where we're going to break down Conor McGregor versus Dennis Siver, and also do some some food for thought regarding the potential matchup between McGregor and Jose Aldo. And we really like to say thank you to all of our listeners out there who've been checking us out on Facebook, on SureDog, MMA Underground, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all these. Rico, can you talk about just how happy we are right now, man? I mean, like, we've gotten so much love this week.
I mean, we've gotten so much love. Our podcast is really expanding. A lot of listeners are coming through, giving us support. We've had so many downloads. I don't know the numbers offhand, but it's something that me and Jim are personally proud of. We're getting a lot of feedback, and a lot of the fight fans are really coming out and just showing us love and giving us constructive criticism. So we're pretty hype about it, and we're meeting. We've been communicating with a lot of people that are big into the game, and it's pretty dope, and it's very exciting and very humbling at the same time, knowing that we have a lot more to improve on.
Exactly. So before we begin, let's plug us. And for those of you guys who haven't checked us out, we're available on Facebook at All Kickboxing, on Twitter at allkickboxing_, on Instagram at All Kickboxing, on YouTube at AKB space All Kickboxing. We're also on SureDog at All Kickboxing, MMA Underground at All Kickboxing. Our website is allkickboxing.wix, that's spelled wix.com/allkickboxing, and you'll be able to find that link in our social media handles. And thank you to the MMA/martial arts community, techniques discussion, and news Facebook group. I'm really liking the love we're getting from those guys, and of course from everywhere else. We're going to be posting our podcast on all of these forums I mentioned in the upcoming days. And by the way, if you guys are listening to this, it'll be posted, so what am I saying? But I know, before we get into my boy Conor McGregor, I know you are going to put up a journal entry regarding your visit to Sitan Muay Thai Gym in Astoria, Queens. Just give us a little teaser on what that's going to be about.
Oh, it's definitely going to be about my experience at the Sitan Gym and how they run through their classes. And basically, it's going to be about the impression they gave me and the impression that I honestly try to give them also. So, it's a very tough gym. Teasers, they use canes. They use reeds. A lot of heavy drilling, and it's really a no bullshit. Excuse my language, no bullshit kind of gym. It's really hardcore. They live, eat, breathe, and sleep Muay Thai over there. And that's all they know. They know Taekwondo too, the team, but it's really all about Muay Thai over there. Another thing I can say is that facilities don't matter as much as the trainers and fighters that are in the gym. The gym is pretty small. I'll tell you that. But these guys in there are really no games kind of fighters, and I would definitely join that gym.
Nice.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that was the most memorable, what was it?
What was the one thing that was most memorable? Oh, when I first when I opened the door, it was a wave of heat just hit me in the face. When you're standing outside from the gym, you literally could not see anything, even though the whole gym is walled with windows, because it was so foggy in there. So you couldn't see anything from the outside. You had to open the door and see what was going on inside. And when you walked inside, it was like it seemed like hundreds of people just practicing the clinch and throwing knees and just like being yelled at. It was beautiful.
Wow. The belly of the beast.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm looking forward to it myself, reading your journal entry on your trip there. And any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're around the Queens area, Astoria, or if you just live in Queens, around that area, feel free to check it out. If you're really into authentic Muay Thai with a little bit of Dutch kickboxing, but they really incorporate both, where you don't lose out on any other styles. Just feel free to join. It's called Sitan Gym. It's found in Astoria. I don't know the address off the top of my head, but if you look it up, you'll be able to find it. There's a lot of fighters that fight in line fights, Friday night fights, and battle rock. So if you want to develop yourself as a fighter and focus solely on Muay Thai, feel free to join it. And they're not paying me to say this, so.
Now, let's get into the meat of the conversation. Conor McGregor. Rico, you know I can talk all day about it. What is your impression of the man? The man, the myth, the legend?
Okay, so I can say in the beginning, I thought he was a bit cocky, and that, you know, he's all talk and he really hasn't had a challenge in terms of fighters in the UFC. From what I've heard, he hasn't really fought like a real grappler. But with that being said, even his like takedown defense and wrestling defense is pretty good since the first time that he lost due to a takedown prior to joining the UFC. What I got from him now is that he really is promising, in spite of all the trash talking that he does, in spite of all the overconfidence that he seems to have. Conor McGregor is really a versatile fighter. He's always adapting. And like he says, he doesn't even consider himself as a fighter. He considers himself as a study of human movement. And me like just looking into that aspect of his philosophy, it's kind of true. It's not lying. He really does do things out of the ordinary, and he has a lot of unorthodox styles of fighting, and you never know what he's gonna bring to the table. And I kind of reflect with that, and I kind of parallel with that, and respect that part of the philosophy, and I kind of try to be that kind of fighter myself. And for that reason, I kind of like him for that.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think Conor McGregor is really there's like a level of mystique about him, where I think to a lot of fans who checked him out in the UFC, he kind of bursted onto the scene. Hardcore fans checked out his career in England, watching him fight over in Ireland too, in Cage Warriors. But for a lot of people, he was this dynamic striker who bursted onto the scene and started knocking guys out in the first round. And people were wondering how he's doing this. And when you just start finishing dudes so quickly and people don't get a chance to see how much you actually, how you fight over the long run, people start to wonder, man, what is this guy hiding? Does he have anything more to show? Like, what is his full potential? People are thinking they're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Also, what's fascinating is I think him saying that he's a student of human movement is making a lot of traditional mixed martial arts fans, practitioners, fighters, and especially strikers a little self-conscious. So this is Conor McGregor after he defeated Dustin Poirier at UFC 170 in the post-fight interview. Just listen to what he said right here, and this really stuck with me.
You said coming into this fight that his movement was basic. What did you mean by that?
I just find that a lot of mixed martial artists get into like a rut of coming out with that Thai boxing flat-footed style. Against a guy like me that's in and out on lighting his feet and the angles are different. It's the old age. This is the new age. I wanted to come over here to America and show the American public the new era of the fighting Irish, and I brought my whole country with me. If one of us go to war, we all go to war.
That's what it is. He is creating change on a technical, tactical, striking level in the highest level of mixed martial arts in a way that it can't be denied anymore. He has so much bravado, so much confidence, so much cockiness, and his performances, they speak for themselves that it's undeniable that there is truth to what he's saying. And I'm thinking, how much truth is there to what he's saying? Because I think there is truth to it. Is it true that mixed martial arts strikers, fighters, have basic movement and he is really the first of the Mohicans? Or is it all talk? Now, what are your thoughts on that and how it affects you, a guy who comes from, more or less traditional, like you said, Sitan Gym, that you like Sitan Gym because it's so traditional. From that background, coming from that background, does it make you self-conscious in any way? Does it make you reassess how you fight completely?
Let me answer the latter question first. I don't think it really reassesses how I think about fighting because I've always had that thought in fighting. As a matter of fact, when I trained at ITC, a lot of the moves that I would pull off were very unorthodox and very non-traditional. I do have a love for the traditional Muay Thai because I feel that as a novice in fighting, I should have a base. I should have a basic background and not just be all over the place. However, with that being said, as I evolve as a fighter, I should incorporate new tactics and bring in the unorthodox. So as I joined Sitan Muay Thai's gym, I really like the fact that they're very focused on traditional Muay Thai and learning Muay Thai as the way it should be taught. And that's really what I like about it. I want to be good at one thing, but when it comes to developing different skills, I want to bring in my own personality into my fighting style. So it doesn't really faze me that Conor McGregor is saying that. And I really don't agree with the thought that Conor McGregor is the first to bring in that style of fighting because it's not true. There's definitely other fighters who are students of human movement. There are definitely fighters that are in the UFC that are so avant-garde in their style of fighting that has caused them to be so successful. We could throw some names out there. Anderson Silva has a heavy Muay Thai background, but he also has a black belt in Taekwondo. And he throws a lot of moves that are out of the ordinary. We have John Jones Bones, who's known for his unorthodox fighting, throwing elbows from many angles, fighting in different ranges very, very well, and you never know what he's going to throw at you. Even T.J. Dillashaw, Conor McGregor said it himself that T.J. Dillashaw is one of those fighters that bring a new style of fighting to the table. With that being said, I do believe that many successful, not super successful fighters in the UFC, but many successful fighters have stuck to that traditional Muay Thai, Jiu-jitsu and wrestling. But many of the top competitors right now are very, very innovative and very unorthodox in their style.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of creative fighters out there. I think the reason why Conor McGregor has made himself the flag bearer of this neo-striking, this sudden evolution of the game in like a very short period of time in like a microcosm is because he's drawn so much attention to it and to himself.
Yeah.
Now, you spoke about having a base. Conor McGregor, I'm a big fan because he's so experimentative and creative, and really because he takes pages out of the old school, out of traditional martial arts. He's bringing things back that people thought were extinct. obsolete. But with all that being said, he, like you said, has a base, has a style, and that is actually his boxing game. I did some research on him, and everyone knows he was born and raised in Dublin, Ireland. He played football as a teenager, and he also trained at the Crumlin Boxing Club in Dublin, Ireland. He was a national boxing champion as an amateur. He went pro in mixed martial arts in March of 2008. So what that lets me know is that I think he's at a point now where his boxing base is so solid that he is able to go out and take bits and pieces of less traditional aspects of striking and fighting. And it won't dilute his solid foundation of boxing. I always said that I give a lot of props to boxing, although we're called all kickboxing here, because I feel that the fundamentals of boxing apply to any striking martial arts. I think it's actually more comprehensive in terms of how it teaches people the understanding of positioning, range, footwork, movement, because it's so rich in history. There have been so many great fighters that people have studied and learned from, and the instructions of great coaches that have passed. There's a lineage in boxing, I think. There's a very rich history, and I think it teaches fundamentals much better than other striking martial arts can. So that is why I think he's such a successful striker. I'm going to play you a clip of Conor McGregor talking about styles and what he feels about it.
I just want to have no technique, I want people to look at me and not know what's going to happen, The highest technique to have is to have no technique, and that's what I'm working towards. I have an open mind. I study everything. I study all combat. I study everyone's movement, and I look to take something from everyone.
Now, what I find fascinating about that is he's saying this as he's working a heavy bag, and he does look like he's striking it as a very good boxer. Am I being pessimistic in saying that, he's really a boxer, learning new things? No, I'm not saying that, but I believe his foundation is boxing. Why he's so enigmatic and I think interesting to people is because he has a lot of parallels to what Bruce Lee used to say. And I'm going to play you a clip of what Bruce Lee said regarding styles. This is vintage right here.
You see, actually, I do not teach, karate because I do not believe in styles anymore. I mean, I do not believe that there is such thing as like Chinese way of fighting or the Japanese way of fighting or whatever way of fighting, because unless human beings have 3 arms and 4 legs, we will have a different form of fighting. But basically, we have only 2 hands and 2 feet. So styles tends to not only separate man, because they have their own doctrines, and then the doctrine became the gospel truth, that you cannot change, But if you do not have styles, if you just say, well, here I am, as a human being, how can I express myself totally and completely? Now, that way, you won't create a style, because style is a crystallization, that way, it's a process of continuing growth.
Man, it's like Conor McGregor was quoting Bruce Lee right there. 40 years later.
Yeah, it really did seem like he was quoting him. That speech for Bruce Lee really gave me goosebumps.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, well, with that being said, I really think that even though Conor McGregor says he doesn't believe in technique, doesn't have any specific technique, and he's throwing everything but the kitchen sink, he still has his base. He still has his background. As a matter of fact, Conor McGregor brings out new techniques onto the table, but he always falls back to his boxing. And sometimes he uses it to set up his boxing. So for him to say that he doesn't have a necessary technique, I'd say no. He always has his boxing background to really put a finish to his fights.
Yeah, I agree. I think later on, as he becomes more proficient at his Taekwondo, Capoeira, kicks, I mean, he's training with a Taekwondo coach right now specifically. Maybe we'll see his styles blend and work more organically together, which I already see happening. He is showing us new things every time. So, we started off saying we're going to preview Dennis Siver versus Conor McGregor. Now, Dennis Siver, I did some research on him as well, and he's a UFC veteran. He's 22, 9-0, 1 no contest. Conor McGregor's record is 16-2-0. Siver has more experience, being actually 10 years older than Conor. Siver is 36 years old. And I've watched Dennis Siver for a long time now, and I went back and looked at his fighting background, and this is what I found. Siver began training in Sambo and Judo when he was 15, and at the age of 17, he moved to Germany, where he continued his training with Taekwondo and kickboxing. That same year, in 1996, he became the WAKO Amateur Kickboxing Champion of Germany. Rico, you've checked out some of Siver's highlights. What stuck out to you? And in relation to how you think, just, as an overview, we'll talk about this deeper later, how this McGregor-Siver fight's going to play out.
Okay, so Dennis Siver is really efficient with that spinning back kick. And like Conor McGregor, he's also a bit unorthodox. He has a heavy left hand, and when he starts boxing, it's very vicious. So if he starts trading punches with Conor McGregor, he'll be able to hold his own. Not only that, he's been training, even though he is a green belt in judo, he's been training in judo and sambo since he was young. So if he ties up with Conor McGregor, he might be able to bring him down and work him on the ground. And it's going to be the first time in a long time where we see a fighter bring Conor McGregor down and put him out of his, I won't say out of his element, but bring him to a place where he hasn't been to in a while. So it's going to be a really interesting fight.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fascinating fight. So what I want to do is talk about, because we love striking, is talk about the technical aspect of Conor McGregor striking. And in the middle of our talk about this, I think it's going to lead to a more organic conversation of how the fight's going to play out between McGregor and Siver. Conor McGregor is an aggressive counter fighter. This is how he finishes so many guys in the first round, is because he has incredible power to boot. He employs pestering lead hand control. Instead of throwing a jab, because he stands southpaw, he realizes that the jab might not be the easiest shot to land as compared to an orthodox versus orthodox style matchup. To do a jab from a southpaw stance, you have to take the inside angle with your lead foot, and in doing so, it is slightly more dangerous than if you were to do the same move if you were fighting an orthodox fighter as an orthodox fighter yourself, because now you're putting your head inside his guard and towards his power rear punch. So instead of taking the inside angle to jab, or trying to stick the jab with his lead foot pointed towards his righty opponent's lead foot and collapsing his jab with the other person's, he actually uses hand control. He pesters his opponents by using his lead hand to pat his opponent's lead hand down. In doing so, he really takes away his opponent's lead punches as a threat, and it sets up his favorite weapon, which is the left cross or the hook. And at the same time, you can actually also set up jabs by patting your opponent's lead hand down to create an opening to do a jab yourself. So that is one of the things I always see. And what is he doing by employing this tactic is what we spoke about in the last podcast, which is what I want you to become, which is an aggressive counter fighter. He employs all the three foundations of accomplishing this, which is he feints a lot, he baits very effectively, and he proactively engages his opponent to make them engage him, so he can counter back. Another thing he does very well is he might not throw the traditional jab, but a testament to his unorthodox style, he throws a jumping jab. This is really one of the more common things he does. He mixes this up with a lead uppercut as well, and he takes the outside angle to where his head is on the outside of his orthodox opponent's jab, and he is able to close the distance and launch a jumping jab with his head off the center line and out of danger. And that same positioning, that same movement he does to do that, by taking his lead foot and putting it to the outside of his opponent's lead foot, is the same position you have to achieve to land what also seems to be one of his favorite punches, which is a jumping lead uppercut. Did you see those moves?
Yeah, I saw some of those moves.
What'd you think about his tendency, his love for leaping into strikes like that?
I think it's a great way to close the distance, and he moves in so quickly when he does that. And he's also dipping out of ranges of punches. So I think it's very effective. Nothing I never really tried, but I would really love to incorporate.
He does it, he sets it up very well. That's why it's not a risky tactic. A lead uppercut, they say the 7 uppercut, it's the number 7 traditionally. They say something you shouldn't throw naked without setups, because it's one of your first lines of defense. I think the first line of defense is your stance, feet positioning. to impose a threat to your opponent, but your lead hand is still one of the earlier lines of defense to your chin. By using that as an offensive tool immediately off the bat, it leaves you exposed to shots, but he sets it up very well in tandem with that lead uppercut. And he hasn't been able to finish guys in the UFC with that shot, but in his earlier matches, he was able to knock this guy out with that leaping uppercut.
Nice. And he steps out. He does it.
Yeah, with his right lead foot, he steps out to take that outside angle. Yeah.
You can say that he's in less danger of getting hit because he's stepping out with the lead uppercut. As opposed if it was like a close stance, like if I was standing orthodox and you were standing orthodox and I'm trying to do a lead uppercut, it leaves me open to a plethora of attacks.
Exactly. That foot positioning is key to making that tactic work. And after you take that outside angle, you're in perfect position to land that coveted rear side cross. So Conor McGregor does it like that. Right lead uppercut into left cross. Another thing about how he achieves aggressive counterfighting is that his unorthodox kicks. I think this is why he loves these weird moves, is because him throwing unorthodox kicks builds uneasiness in his opponent. When you make your opponent tense, a lot of times they respond back by firing back, simply to get you off of them. This is what led to his finish against Dustin Poirier. He did a rear spinning capoeira hook kick, which pushed Dustin Poirier to Conor's left side, setting up that cross. What are your thoughts on how he incorporates these weird moves to really, like you said, set up his boxing effectively?
It's really a psychological game when he does that. I can say for myself, I guess when I first was sparring with people who were doing karate, and Jeremy's part of the kickboxing club in Stony Brook, would throw that, I forgot the name of the kick, where you swing your legs around.
The crescent kick?
The crescent kick, that's the name of it. He would throw the crescent kick, right? And I had two options. Either back away from it, which doesn't achieve anything, or kind of rush the person. And I guess that's the same thing that Poirier was doing to Conor McGregor when he was doing that capoeira kick. Is your first reaction is to either back away and watch him do this all day, or kind of try and stuff your opponent by rushing him. And basically, what happened was Dustin Poirier fell right into Conor McGregor's trap, and he just got caught with that left cross. And he really does that primarily to get his opponents off balance and to get them thinking, oh, I should rush the fight, or I should do something differently because he's going to catch me with these kicks, or he's going to do something crazy. So I need to kind of stuff him and close that distance. And that's exactly what Conor McGregor wanted him to do.
Exactly. I think for a more traditional striker to achieve the same results, they would throw a right kick either off the switch or off the pendulum kick step with your rear foot forward. Now, that is an expected attack. As Conor McGregor says, a lot of guys, they have more of a Muay Thai base. But to achieve the same results with a kick that is the opposite foot, that swings around than the hooking motion, that's the same side of attack, but it's with a different foot. Because he's spinning. I think that is a mindfuck. Even watching it, there was a point where I went, oh, wait, did that just happen right there? It was strange seeing him push a guy with his rear foot towards the same side most fighters would do with their lead foot, with their lead kick. So I thought that was very interesting. And Conor McGregor, again, we're saying how he's developing his taekwondo striking capoeira kicking game. And he's better at him now. I saw his fight against Ivan Butchinger. This was his fight right before his UFC debut, and he knocked him out. It was one of his best knockouts, but in the first few seconds of the fight, he did a 540 tornado kick with his lead foot, and then he was almost close to landing, but after it, he tried to land. It was a spinning hook kick, and he missed badly, and he was very off balance. He almost fell forward, but then these series of attacks, these like wide array of kicks, it allows you to encompass a lot of the ring and push your opponent back. Makes him respect the distance. So even though he was off balance after that hook kick, his opponent had nowhere to go except really to try to... He was stuck behind the cage. So Conor McGregor shot him for a takedown using that falling forward momentum to grab a double leg. So he's getting better at these kicks, but I think balance is key when you throw them. Yeah. Now, another thing I realized about his striking, this was present even in his early days, was you can tell that this is a guy who comes from like good striking. Because there was a certain steadiness in his movement. His stance is, I think, a testament to that, which his stance is very unique in the sense that it is very untraditional. He doesn't hunch his shoulders to cover up his chin. He doesn't employ a high guard. He doesn't tuck his chin. He doesn't stand tall like a Thai fighter. He sits almost down. He like puffs his chest out. And he drops his hands low, and he keeps his head more or less straight in the air. Rico, what'd you think about his stance? Because I studied that stance, and I know why he's doing it, but what'd you think about it?
I think it definitely works for him. I have a little bit of tendency to do it now. It's a cross between... It's almost karate-esque, his stance.
Yeah.
Because he's very wide. He's not square. And it works. It works very well. Hand though, I'm not saying the rear hand. The right hand is forward to catch the opponent's leading hand, and he's able to move easier like that. And then he will dip to the left and catch you with that left hand, and it works for him. And I've done that stance a little bit, I think, and it works. It works.
Yeah, I think why it works is because physically... Okay, so these are the benefits of standing in that fashion. And interestingly enough, for people who haven't seen it yet, it reminds me of how the logo of the Fighting Irishman stands. You know? It is... It does look a little bit like that. It does look a lot like that. And the benefits of it is it gives you a wider range of motion because your legs are further spread apart, and allows you to have a wider array of punching ability. Because you can sit down on your punches better for more power. You can grab better angles with having that wider stance. It allows you to have better head movement because now your hips are looser and you can bend down with your knees to bob and weave. But what I think is the most important part is that it allows him to absorb punishment better. The problem with hunching your back, like so many UFC fighters do, especially when they like weigh in and they stare down and they like hunch their shoulders real high and like crook their backs and they have almost like a hunchback, is that it folds your vertebrae. It bends your vertebrae into, and it especially puts a lot of strain right on the back of your neck where the top of your spine is, to where that's crooked and leaning forward. So when you get a punch, when you get hit in the chin, your neck, the vertebrae that's a part of your neck has to absorb all the shock, and it doesn't disperse the shock all the way down through your vertebrae because your vertebrae isn't straight. You don't have good posture. Now, Conor McGregor has excellent posture. His spine is straight, his spine is loose. Because Conor McGregor keeps his spine so loose, it allows him to absorb shots better than if it was stiff. Now, the detriments of standing this way is, again, so it's almost like a gamble. What do you want to do? Be able to absorb shots better, but at the same time, be maybe more exposed to them by keeping your head up high? Or do you want to absorb lesser shots, but with more impact behind them by hunching your shoulders and making your back crooked? It's kind of a trade-off in that sense, I guess, but because Conor McGregor, he puffs his chest out, it naturally brings his shoulders up to protect him for hooks. It doesn't look like that when you see him. It looks like he actually might even have like a lazy guard, but if you watch closely enough, he is puffing his chest out just enough to where his shoulders, they lift up gradually. It makes his spine straight, and at the same time, he uses his chest as a shield for uppercuts coming up.
Don't you think that stance also makes it possible for him to see shots coming from further away? It kind of a little bit extends the distance. Whereas if you have like a close guard and you're standing square, where it's easier for the opponent to hit you, but when you're standing wide, you have that lead hand to defend you. All is left is the opponent's rear hand and basically their kicks. And it gives you, even though you absorb more shots, but you see them coming and it's more of a distance to travel, I feel. And it's easier for you to move out the way also, because you're more light on your feet, which is why I like that stance. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think it puts you on it like gives you a wider look at the field, because because your head is higher up, because you can look down at your opponent who is really looking up and across his brow. And his stance is conducive again to his fighting style, being an aggressive counter fighter. He can see shots coming and react to them, not only because he stands southpaw and it takes a lot of time for most often than not, orthodox opponents across that open guard to land their rear power shots, which he's more used to anticipating than orthodox fighters are against southpaws, because southpaws, again, fight more orthodox fighters, but also because he puts his head up at a higher, like vantage point. You're absolutely right about that, I think. And the stance he uses where he keeps his knees very bent is more conducive, again, to those kicks that he loves to throw. The capoeira kicks, the spinning hook kicks, the turning side kick, where he puts his weight down and then launches up to put real good torque into the kick. It really works in relation very well to everything else he does. And also, by standing that way, it does keep your head naturally farther back.
Yes.
And while he's doing all of his lead hand control and feints and baiting, he talks shit. Like
you can see those lips moving if you look closely at the camera.
Yeah, he loves to talk shit, which, like, if you're messing your opponent up, on a technical level, and you're still talking shit, like, that has to mess with their heads, man.
I can imagine.
Because, Lyoto Machida is, he doesn't talk shit. Lyoto Machida, I wouldn't say is an aggressive counter fighter, more so a reactionary counter fighter. I don't think he commences the instigation. I don't think he commences the reaction.
Not at all.
He frustrates you and makes you look silly and make mistakes. And he doesn't talk shit, but Conor McGregor, that all that, makes his opponents want to attack him. And he's at a higher, again, vantage point, much better angle to make them pay. So, yeah.
For his weight class. Yeah, he was calling Dennis Siver a midget German.
But the thing is, Dennis Siver is not that short. Conor McGregor on the UFC site, it says he's 5'9". Dennis Siver on the same site says he's 5'7".
7, yeah.
Yeah, like, it's just, I think, physically, Conor McGregor is a lankier guy. He does Conor McGregor does possess a 4-inch reach advantage over Siver, which I think is going to play a big factor. But another thing I think Conor McGregor does very well is that he has efficient footwork. We did a whole, I did a whole spiel in the last podcast about what good footwork means, and it's efficiency, doing as little as possible to accomplish as much as possible. And Conor McGregor has that, more so than other strikers in MMA have. And I think what he does almost better than anyone in that division is his ability to leap back in angles and countering on a charging opponent. He does that very well with uppercuts and the bolo punch. You know the bolo punch, Rico? Like,
yeah, I saw it.
What'd you think about his bolo punching?
That is very dope, and it really throws the opponent off. Where you just swing around and catch your opponent with that punch, and it hurts. I haven't experienced anybody that's thrown a bolo punch at me. I've never thrown a bolo punch. Only time I've seen it was with those. I don't know the name of the boxers per se, but there's certain boxers that threw that punch. And I've seen Conor McGregor do it, and it's very out of the ordinary, and it really catches the opponent. It's between a hook and an uppercut, and it's really advantageous for Conor McGregor, and the opponent doesn't see it coming.
Yeah, I think that's a mark of why he's such a good striker. Is you shouldn't really be throwing a bolo punch when you're leading, because it's hard to close the gap. Okay, I'm sorry. You throw the bolo punch when you're leading, but I think it's much better set up when you do it as a counter shot on the charging opponent that falls into range of the shot. An overextended, out of position opponent, it's a better time to land a bolo punch than if you're marching forward trying to land that move. He does that. That's how he finished Marcus Brimage in his UFC debut. So, now that I gave my spiel on what Conor McGregor is as being an aggressive counter fighter, what other things about his style speak to you?
Let me think. That's a good question. But it's really that ability to just throw something new into the table every single time. But I want to focus more on the left straight.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The left cross counter. Could you talk about that?
That cross counter is something that I don't really do. And I think it's a testament to show that I need to focus more on my left hand. As a matter of fact, my left hand is my weak hand. And I should really focus on that cross, because he's caught so many people with that punch He's knocked so many people out with that left cross or left hook. It is ridiculous. And I don't know what's going on with the fighters if they don't, like, watch his past highlight reels. They just fall into that every single time, where he would definitely render the opponent's lead hand useless, bait him with his rear kicks, and what's left for the fighter to do is attack with his rear hand. So he knows that the opponent's going to do that, so he'll just dip to the left or even back up and just rock him with that left rear hand, and brings him down every single time. And there's many fighters that incorporate that style, but Conor McGregor's really running with that in the UFC.
Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful counters out there, I think, is the left cross counter. So he, I think, is doing this to guys who aren't as accustomed to fighting southpaws. Rico, so you like to fight in southpaw a lot. I'm in orthodox, right? So I'm always trying to take that outside angle with my lead foot, outside of your lead foot, to land my power rear shots. Conor McGregor knows that angle all day, inside and out, and knows that lesser strikers are gonna only go for that, thinking that's like the textbook best way to beat a southpaw. So what he does is he gives you that angle, and by giving you that angle, he now takes the inside angle, he takes his rear left foot and puts it inside your guard. He takes a step to his left with his rear foot and puts it inside your guard, which drops his level and naturally gives him a slip, and presents himself with a much better, cleaner, straighter angle. The orthodox fighter misses his right cross, McGregor slips it, and then Conor comes over the top with the left cross to knock his opponents out. So I thought it was fascinating how there's a direct counter to a tactic that they always say you should use against southpaws, and he is very good at it. People who want to check out his finest example of this, you can go and see how he knocked out Ivan Butchinger. Another great thing about that move is that I think it works in tandem. A lot of what he does is based in tandem with a lot of other things he does. So that cross counter, it works very well with his ability to leap back and actually employ a similar move. Like you said, he leaps back and does it as well instead of taking the slip. His ability to capitalize on an overextended opponent. As an aggressive counter fighter, my dogs love Conor McGregor, as you can hear. As an aggressive counter fighter, he is able to instigate his opponents to not only make them react and then make them miss and hit them, he's also essentially putting them out of position by having them overextend. And we haven't seen him fight against guys with a reach advantage against him yet. I don't think we ever will, because he's a big guy for the featherweight division. He has significant size advantage almost over everyone I've seen him so far. So I don't think we'll ever see him use his ability to make a lankier opponent overreach and thus neutralizing any reach advantage that person has and then countering off of it. But he does it against shorter guys who have shorter arms to begin with. And yeah. What do you think about Conor McGregor? We should have maybe talked about this earlier, but what do you think about his knockout ability?
He has very good knockout ability. Like, he has the reach. So when he comes in with that punch, he's really punching through you. And I think that gives him that advantage because his reachability is so long. So when he goes in for that left cross or left hook, it's really coming through you. And you're not the last point of destination. It's whatever is behind you. Not only that, he is strong. He is very strong. And he is kind of big for his division. I think he really cuts a lot of weight to be a featherweight. And so he might be that weight class. He might be 145 during weigh-ins, but he's not 145 in that cage. I tell you that. So he really has tremendous knockout power, and then he uses that to his advantage.
Exactly, man. He talks about it in like post-fight press conferences how in the future he's gonna go up in weight and take over the lightweight division.
All right, he should.
Because he says how it's hard for him. The weight cut's tough. It's like it's hard for him to like go out and eat with his training partners, and they're having like steak and he's having chicken and avocados. He like talks about it very openly, I think, which is very cool. And people like I think underestimate how much of a physical specimen he is. Like his shoulders. We talked about this. That's the great thing about our podcast is that like our podcast has grown with Conor McGregor's like UFC trajectory, like his UFC skyrocketing career. Like we profiled his fight with Diego Brandao in episode number 3.
This is our 3rd episode about. isn't it?
It is. And like, and I think it's because he's so relevant, and like every time he brings something new. We talked about earlier how in the previous podcast how his shoulders are like swimmer shoulders.
Yeah.
Like they flare out from his hips. Like he's like the very definition of a mesomorph body. And his shoulders almost reminds me of Tommy the Hitman Hearns, the great boxer, the boxing legend. His best punch, he stood orthodox, was the right cross. People say that that's one of the hardest punches ever in boxing history because he had ridiculously broad shoulders, had tremendous height advantage, kind of like Conor, to where he didn't do it more of as a cross, but he would actually able to punch down with it through his opponent's chin, his much shorter opponents. Another thing he does very well is, I think we caught glimpses of this in the UFC, is he loves throwing, especially against Max Holloway, his second fight. He was employing the soft rear hand. Did you notice that? How he has vicious power.
I heard that he really does that. Like he will throw a soft rear hand.
What are your thoughts on that? And do you ever use it? I don't really see you use it.
I don't really use. I shadow box using it, but I never really thrown a soft rear hand. I don't know. I think it's easier for taller people. And another thing is that I'm fighting orthodox. I'm not orthodox. I'm fighting southpaw, and I'm right-handed. So throwing a soft rear hand with my left hand, which is already weak, I feel is going to be very inefficient. If I was standing southpaw, maybe I'll throw the soft rear hand a little bit more. But if I'm fighting an orthodox, which I usually do, throwing a soft rear hand with my left hand, which is already my weak hand, is not going to be very effective, I think.
I think it's a very effective punch for you, man, because it's a great tool for, again, a counter fighter to use because, you know, people look at the rear hand as always a power shot, but as you get better, you can actually use it almost as a jab. He actually transfers his weight from his rear hip to his lead hip, almost as if it's the same motion you'd kind of do when you do an overhand right, but without the intent of really torquing your hips into it. He stops his hip from moving forward almost half or even like a third of the way. And by doing that, after you displace your weight from your rear hip to your lead hip and your lead leg, you're able to now cut an angle to that side. And Conor McGregor, he uses that move to take that outside angle, which sets up what we talked about before, the jumping jab, the lead uppercut, and also his right hook. And he gives him that coveted southpaw versus orthodox right side angle. And there is a level of disdain he has. We're talking about how he talks shit, but everything like he does, I don't know if it's because he thinks he's such a better striker, but there's like a level of disdain where he looks at guys striking and like there's like a level of disrespect there, and I think it's works so well for him.
I think his mind games are genuine disrespect.
I think, you know, like when he punches you in the face and he pulls his hands back, he goes, "What now?" He does that shit. Yeah. He's like, in the middle of the Poirier fight, Poirier, this was fucking hilarious. This was like seconds before the knockout. Conor goes, "That's it, pussy?"
Oh, no.
He goes, "That's all you got, pussy? Come on, pussy." I was like, God damn, dude, he is talking mad. And this is another thing that Conor McGregor does well. He likes to box with short punches. If you notice that he finished Marcus Brimage in his UFC debut like this, but he doesn't throw punches like how you and I throw when we shadow box, which is every punch is fully extended out with the shoulder, protecting our chin, always having one hand in place, making sure you have one guard in place. He keeps both of his hands out in front of him and he throws short punches, and neither hand really comes back up to protect his chin. Professional boxers, expert boxers do this because it allows you to work, like work in the guard, like in front of you. Do punches out there, and it gives you a wider depth of field because you're not perhaps blocking your vision with a high guard by having your hands back. It allows you to react to punches better while you're committing offense. To casual viewers, it might look like poor, lazy defense or over-aggression, but Conor McGregor, man, that is what he's doing is deliberate. What are your thoughts on that?
Great. I'm glad that you asked. I think it's very good. I think it's very efficient, and it's very you give up protecting your face a lot of the times, but if you know what you're doing, you usually beat your opponent to the punch so many times. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't say that I don't do that, because when I shadow, maybe when I'm sparring, I don't throw a lot of short punches. But when I shadow box, sometimes I do throw not so many short punches, but I throw in between short and long punches. And I know that I do this because back to my time in Sitan, which was yesterday, shadow boxing, right? They told us to shadow box, throw everything. So I was doing these punches, and the instructor at the time said, don't throw those punches. Throw hard punches, throw follow-through punches, throw everything behind the punch. So, me being a new fighter and in the gym and respecting his wishes, I started throwing every punch with intent. So every punch would be like, it was almost like kata-esque, like, you know, when you do the karate kata, like, ha, ha, right?
Yeah.
I was doing it from a boxing style. So I would throw my hand like, my hook.
You're shadow boxing?
Yeah, I was shadow boxing. Because at first I was like, you know, bobbing and weaving a little bit and throwing a little bit of short punches. And I guess they do it, but I don't know what he wanted. I guess he didn't want me to do it then. And he told me to follow through with the punches. So, I mean, that's what I did. But I would really like to incorporate that when I'm sparring. Because it really works on your speed. It beats your opponent to the punch. And you don't have to do it every time. If you want to do like a heavy punch, every now and then mid-combination, that would be great too. So, Conor McGregor has a base in boxing. And he's fairly good at it. So, he definitely knows what he's doing when he's shadow boxing and when he's boxing his opponents.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hallmarks of a great boxer is knowing when to give everything into certain punches and to pull back on some others. Not putting everything into every single shot is very important, and he understands that. So now we got to talk about this matchup. So this I think sets the groundwork for what we're going to talk about now, which is his opponent Siver. I think it's more of an interesting match than people give it credit for. Conor McGregor, his ability to slip punches, especially with that cross counter, slipping to his left, he's doing it in a range that is boxing range. It is still in boxing range where it's difficult to land, I think, a meaningful Thai kick without you shrimping. For me as an orthodox fighter, it's not easy to really land that shot in the traditional Thai sense because I collapse my hips trying to bend it in such a close distance in respect to where you're standing to me. I have to shrimp my hips back and like almost crouch mid-kick to be able to land a shot at that close distance with a roundhouse. But what Siver does that can be devastating for that is because Siver stands orthodox and he throws traditional taekwondo kicks without complete hip rotation or without stepping out with his lead foot to throw that full power Thai kick. He throws kicks up, almost at a vertical angle up with his rear foot. He's very good with it. It's not I wouldn't say it's a power kick, but against a guy in Conor who's going to be ducking down into it, if Siver can time that kick very well, it is in perfect range, in boxing range, to throw that taekwondo-style kick up.
I think it'll be very effective to catch him with that kick. And he's a little bit unorthodox with his striking also, so he might be able to catch him with that. But then again, Conor McGregor, he's very innovative, and you don't know what he's going to be bringing to the table. He definitely knows that Dennis Siver is going to try to throw that taekwondo kick. And he might be prepared for it. He might anticipate it and just jump out of range. That's how I'm seeing it. Every time he throws it. And come back in because he'll be so light on his feet.
Yeah, I think the key to beating Conor McGregor or anyone is taking away their best weapons. And we've listed some of his best weapons right here. And perhaps that's one thing that Siver can do to disarm that coveted left cross counter he does. Now, Siver still has to worry about, really, Conor is a very athletic fighter. Now, I talked about the proper foot positioning for the lead uppercut, and even with the foot positioning, that is an athletic move. You need some explosiveness to do that. And we'll see how the shorter Siver deals with punches that are coming from that side. Now, what Siver does very well is that he has a very nice counter left hook, like you mentioned, a heavy left hand.
Yes. When I was watching his highlights, I was wondering whether he was southpaw for a second. Because every time he comes with that counter left hook, it looks almost like Conor McGregor's straight and a left hook. But then again, he is an orthodox fighter, right?
Yeah, he is.
So I think he kind of switches stances a little bit during mid-combination. Like he steps forward, and then he comes in with that left hook.
And that's the perfect punch to throw against the guy who's going to do leaping uppercuts, leaping lead uppercuts, and leaping jabs.
Yeah.
I saw Siver fight Andre Winner. This was a few years back, but he threw a punch in that fight that really impressed me. Andre Winner came charging in recklessly, albeit, but Siver took a step back at an angle to his rear hip, to his back and to the right, and then he caught him with a stepping back left hook. That's very tricky to throw, man. A stepping back left hook.
And he was standing orthodox.
Yeah, orthodox, righty against righty. Now, we're comparing moveset versus moveset, which I don't think necessarily dictates the outcome of a fight. It's not so cut and dry like that. I think you have to look at them in their style of fighting. If Conor McGregor is an aggressive counter fighter, I think Siver actually, first off, has shown that he is more well-rounded. He actually is a very good wrestler for that division. In recent years, he's been able to take guys down and beat them up on the ground. Like he did it to Nam Phan. He is able to actually, I think, impose the risk of the takedown, which will work very well in relation to his striking. Threaten level changes, which is one thing that we don't really see Conor McGregor do, which I think will make him even more devastating, is if he threatens guys with takedowns, that inherent invisible risk of takedowns and level changes to go along with his feinting and baiting. But he doesn't do that. What are your thoughts on Siver being more well-rounded and how that will play into this fight?
I definitely believe for this coming fight, we're going to see Conor McGregor fighting. I'm not going to say in new areas, in new fields, in new waters, but we're going to see him go back into a little bit of grappling if Dennis Siver is able to close that distance and do a wrestling or judo takedown. With that being said, Conor McGregor is somebody who's always looking to improve. Just because we didn't see Conor McGregor do some ground fighting lately doesn't mean that he's not prepared for it. It doesn't mean that he's not ready for it. And it doesn't mean that he will be dominated if he's in that position. Way before the UFC, he was manhandled and was taken down. And I think that was a point in his life where he realized that he really needs to be well-rounded, not only in striking, but also in grappling. And if Dennis Siver takes him down, like other analysts have said, he has good takedown defense. He is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And not only that, he attacks while he's defending takedowns, which Dennis Siver has to worry about. He could really stack his opponents. He could really sprawl on them and have one hand on the opponent, have another hand just throwing uppercuts or throwing knees.
Yeah, I totally agree. When Conor McGregor attacks opponents coming in with rising knees, and when they're trying to take him down up against the cage, and he braces opponents down with one hand and lands vicious elbows across the side of their temple, it reminds me of kind of what Jose Aldo does. Jose Aldo has the most nuanced, the most effective anti-wrestler game, and we'll definitely talk about him after this, but what Jose Aldo does is he actually, the same footwork Jose Aldo uses to strike, it's the same thing he uses to stop takedowns. And we'll definitely flesh that out later on, but Conor McGregor seems to right now in this stage he is fighting wrestlers in the more traditional, kind of old school. Maybe this is the one aspect of his game that hasn't evolved, which is I don't see him meeting takedowns with anything other than just strikes to meet it head on. It's just collision. That's what he's waiting for. Jose Aldo, what he does is if you decide to go for a takedown, the same step he does with his lead foot where he pivots out and then he takes his rear foot and moves it towards his left so he can pivot out that way to the back. That same move he does when he does his strikes, his jabs, is the same angle he takes to prevent a fighter from taking him down, because now his rear foot is out of range for his opponents to grab, and his body is facing diagonal in relation to his opponent. It's not his back is like completely in front of his opponent's head, it's often to the side to the left, giving him a much better angle and leverage on his opponent to push him down. So that is one thing that I haven't really seen Conor McGregor do. Granted, we haven't seen guys try to really take him down so far. Like that's one of the common criticisms against him is the UFC isn't pinning him up against wrestlers. People are saying that like even this was interesting. Like they interviewed Frankie Edgar and they're like, "Hey Frankie, do you think you'll fight Conor McGregor soon?" And he's like, "I don't think they're gonna give me Conor soon. Really, I think he'll fight for the title first before he fights me." Because I think I think some people are saying, it's like premeditated. The UFC wants to keep this guy, they want him to like really flourish. Don't want him to
money.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, you can't hate on that. But we don't know how he's gonna react to a good wrestler at this stage of his career. You're right. When he first began, his record is, I said, 16-2. He has 14 wins by KO, 3 by submission, and 1 win by decision. But he also has 2 losses by submission early in his career. His first loss was a knee bar against this guy named Artemij Sitenkov in Cage of Truth. I couldn't find a video of this fight, but the fight lasted 30 seconds in the first round.
Ooh, so the opponent probably did a sister takedown. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, shit.
With a knee bar or something.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, bro. But this was in 2008. And then in a 6th fight against this fellow Irishman named Joseph Duffy, he lost via arm triangle choke in 38 seconds. And that's the fight you saw. What'd you think about seeing him at his like most vulnerable and when he lost? What'd you think about that, seeing a whole other side of his career?
What I got out of it is, basically I said to myself, okay, that explains it, because everybody has a learning experience, and I guess he has many of them, but that particular fight was a specific learning experience. So it proves to show that there is no fighter that is invulnerable, and Conor McGregor had some holes in his game, and he was able to take care of it early in his career. So that's really what I got out of it. Wrestling, grappling is not his best skill set. It's gotten better now. That's what I honestly believe, but it wasn't his best skill set, and he was able to grow from that, and he was able to learn from his mistakes, and he's become a better fighter because of that.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry. And I think that he's fought other grapplers after that fight, not to the level of elite wrestlers in the UFC, but I mean, he's fought other wrestlers, and it shows that he's gotten better because of it, and he knows how to defend himself in that situation.
Conor McGregor. Remember after Dustin Poirier, he was wearing that brown belt, the BJJ brown belt.
He was.
Yeah, he got actually was upgraded, upgraded to. he got his BJJ brown belt that night. So he actually, his trainer John Kavanagh is a great trainer. He's the first Irish person to achieve a black belt in BJJ.
Oh.
So he has good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training. Now it's just a matter of if there's anyone that can really put him in that position again to see how much he's progressed since that lost all those years back. I think Conor McGregor really is a testament to like anything in life in general, to where whenever you see like someone who's super successful and then like they're called like the next big thing, the hot thing on the block, you go back and look at them, they've like struggled. They've been down and out. It's been a long haul. It's just now that they're popular, you're seeing them. But they've been like working their ass off for no money for a long time. And he began in March of 2008. That is a while back.
Yeah, that is.
But he's put in the work. He's put in the losses. And I always say a fighter who is 20-1 is scarier than a guy who's 20-0. Just like how Aldo has 1 loss, a fighter with that 1 loss to me is scarier than a guy who's unblemished, because I know that person never wants to feel the bitter taste of defeat again. It's a big psychological edge I think it has. You have when you lose. Do you think now Dennis Siver, his most famous weapon is a turning side kick to the body with his right kick?
Yeah.
Do you think that'll be effective against Conor McGregor, who stands southpaw, unlike most guys he's landed that on who stand orthodox? Or how do you think Conor's going to deal with that strike?
I don't know. I think he might just miss Conor McGregor with that kick, to be honest.
Yeah?
Yeah, because he's going to see the turn. It's going to be an open guard. Conor McGregor might be able to back out. And I won't say that he clapped down the kick, but he'll definitely be able to better better move out of range or move to the side to get away from that kick just because it's open. And like I said before, Conor McGregor is definitely anticipating that kick because he throws that kick a lot. So, even though Daniel Siver's a black belt in Taekwondo, Conor McGregor has so much more kicks to bring to the table, and I don't know if Dennis Siver is going to bring anything else other than that sidekick and his boxing and wrestling.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I said, what do you think?
Oh, okay. I think the shot to I think when it comes to orthodox versus southpaw, the shot to either fighter's lead hip or lead body, it's not the easiest thing to do because I think there's a smaller target. I've tried teeping you with my lead leg when you're standing southpaw and your lead right hip, and I realized, man, my foot, if it doesn't have perfect placement on your body, will most likely glance off because that is a very small target. So to counter that kick is you actually go as if it's a revolving door. So if Siver is doing that off his right leg, the turning sidekick, Conor McGregor takes that angle he loves to take so much for his counter left cross by Conor taking a step to his left and going towards that open guard. That is the way you move in order to remove any threat of that kick landing. If you move the other way, now you're almost lunging into it. You're in a better position to not only get caught with the heel, but also with the ball of his foot as well. You're going to get caught if you move the other way, but you have to actually, it's counterintuitive, go towards the side of the heel in a sense, and then circle out like a revolving door. And Conor McGregor has shown that he's able to take that inside, play that inside game, which we don't really see a lot of guys do when they fight in orthodox, because the inside angle, I always say, is more difficult for an orthodox fighter to fight against a southpaw, because by trying to move to your right side as an orthodox fighter, you have to step off with your right foot, which has to now do both the directing and also the stepping. But when you're trying to go the other way, you can pedal off your right foot and step with your lead and then move off that way in a more natural, I think, easy motion. So we'll see how effective that kick is. But another problem Siver's going to run into is that he's not going to be able to take Conor down, not only because of the threat of the knees, and Conor has like underrated speed and power in his knees. There was a fight back in like his old days where he came out like guns blazing with his punches, and then he grabbed a guy with one hand behind his head. It was like a single collar tie, like a single tie plum, and he was kneeing the hell out of this guy with one hand. And the problem with that is, if your opponent he can bust out of it. But what Conor was doing, he had great control over it, grabbed his opponent right on the back of his head to get full leverage. And because he stands in the way he does, with his head, like you said, in the higher vantage point, he was actually able to predict and see overhands coming from a guy who had his head ducked down there.
Ooh, then he would have definitely whooped my ass.
Yeah, I mean, like, that I love how it would have been that technique that he would used to whoop your ass, not anything else. Just that
I
one.
love doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great counter. That's how Weidman dropped Silva in the first round. Essentially, like, knocked him out in the first round of their rematch. But Conor was, like, seeing these shots coming and just leaning, backing away, because he had that high vantage point and because he has good strength to boot. So not only is Conor McGregor hard to take down because of those knees I just mentioned, because of the uppercut, the bolo punch, but because he stands in a southpaw position against an orthodox fighter. Did you know that Anderson Silva is actually naturally a righty?
Yeah, I knew that.
This has to do with Anderson Silva's choice and why he stood the way he did. Silva, a natural righty, fought in a lefty position as a southpaw because he was using that to stop takedowns. It's harder for an orthodox wrestler to take down a southpaw fighter because, again, much like that angle I told you where Jose Aldo takes by doing the pivot and taking his rear hip out of range of his opponent's grip, your leg is farther away from your opponent's. In this sense, it would be his rear power grabbing hand if your rear hip is all the way back. If you were standing orthodox to orthodox, I can grab your lead leg with my rear hand, and then my lead jabbing hand is actually closer to your rear foot is by just a little bit. And just that little of a distance can be the difference between taking a guy successfully and not. So I think Conor McGregor is not going to be an easy guy to take down, really, for Dennis Siver.
Dennis Siver might be able to take down Conor McGregor if they clinch up, I think.
Yeah. But that's if Conor has this uncanny ability to not get put in those positions because he is an aggressive counter fighter. Dennis Siver, to me, he seems to fight like a guy who is willing to trade, who is willing to press forward without the... Dennis Siver counters very well, especially with that left hook, but I've seen him in exchanges where I thought he was he was brawling in a sense. Conor McGregor, a lot of times when he gets put in that position, like I said, backs up at an angle and counters you. Do you think if Siver were to have success in any field in this fight, where do you think he'd be the most successful?
If there were one thing that would save Siver in this fight, is probably with the... maybe a little bit with the striking, a little bit with the left. And if he's lucky enough to clinch up and take him down, then he might have some success wrestling with him in some ground game.
Do you think Siver's going to have any chance of grabbing a single leg takedown because he won't be able to get that rear leg?
I think he'll have a chance to grab the single leg takedown, but he'll pay for it.
With elbows to the side of his head. You know, Chael Sonnen said something fascinating. He said that in MMA, a single leg takedown is almost worthless. Because what happens is you grab one of his legs, and he just scoots back up against the cage to where now you have to work off the cage and try to muscle him down to the floor.
That is so true. Single leg takedowns in wrestling, collegiate wrestling, is good. There's nothing for you to hop back against, and if you get pushed out of the ring, that's a point for the person who pushed you out. But when it comes to MMA, you just back up against the cage and you're good to go. It's all about the double leg, and if you're doing the single leg, you have to try and sweep out that other leg before he reaches the cage.
Exactly. Now, we've seen instances where guys failed miserably at getting double leg takedowns, but then mid-fight they went for single legs and had success all of a sudden. A great example was Phil Davis versus Little Nog, Rogerio Nogueira. Davis couldn't take this guy down with his double leg shots, but the moment he changed it to a single leg, he got him like that. I thought that was very interesting, and it's been a while since I've seen that fight again, but I think that was just a case of him mixing things up and really.
How did he complete the single leg? Did he sweep out the other leg, or did he?
Davis completed it in the fashion that I think is where he is the most successful at when he wrestles, which isn't based on explosive charges and explosive shots and takedowns, but more when it comes, like you said, sweeping guys, tripping them up with their standing foot, and really using his grappling knowledge to really take them down and drag them to the floor with trips and throws instead of like what. This is why Chael Sonnen feels that a single leg's worthless, because Chael Sonnen has had a nasty double leg takedown that just blasted through you. So we have to pick a favorite here, right? I mean, before we do that, let me just go through some more statistics. How much of Siver's career in MMA? The guy is 36 years old. He has, what is that? He has way more fights. I don't even know. At 22, 9-0, 1 no contest. Conor 16-2. How much of wear and tear do you think is going to play a factor in this for Siver, on his body?
Well, he has 22 wins. He hasn't lost 9 losses. Not, I mean, Conor McGregor lost twice. I think we have a little bit of a factor in this. And not only that, he was a bit older. How old is Conor McGregor? Isn't he like...
He's 26. Conor's 26. Dennis Siver's 36.
Oh, no. Wear and tear is definitely a factor in this.
Why? Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Not only that, Conor McGregor is a young, fresh fighter, and he's much more athletic. So, to add that to the fact that Dennis Siver's been fighting all his life, it's gonna show.
It's unfortunate because like Dennis Siver, I don't like to see old guys get knocked out by like young dudes simply because they're old. You know, I just don't think that's like cool. I think that's like, I don't think that's fair. But that's just the nature of the game. This is a young man's sport. We gotta be honest, right?
Yeah.
And Siver, he actually he's been fighting at featherweight for his last couple of fights now, but he's been fighting at lightweight earlier on in his UFC career. And even at lightweight, he was a big dude, and he's very muscular. And for him to drop to 145, he's still gonna have that size and that strength advantage against most of his opponents, and it might actually negate Conor's size advantage as well, because Conor has problems cutting too. But I think it comes down to their structure. I think Conor's a lankier guy who has more knockout power. Siver's very stocky and compact, has a 4-inch reach disadvantage. And also, man, Conor's never been knocked out. You know, Siver got badly hurt by Donald Cerrone. Like, he got dropped, like, 3 times in one round of that fight? And that...
That's Donald Cerrone?
155.
155? Siver was fighting Donald Cerrone?
Yeah, and, you know, Siver's 5'7", Cerrone is like 6'1", or like 6...
Yeah, that's why
he's been there, done that, man. Like, Siver has a few knockouts on his checklist, and I think that's a problem when it comes to absorbing Conor's power. If Conor McGregor, you think, has power now, and if you thought, you know, Siver being a big featherweight would be able to absorb Conor's power better than his previous opponents have, and I don't think that is going to play any factor, because Siver has been knocked out before. He's been in the game longer, and he doesn't... You know, your chin, man, it just... Like, I look at it as like the Metro card. You know, I've never been knocked out, but you've rung my bell a couple of times, and I was very very self-conscious about this. Like, it's like the Metro card. There's only so many times you can get that ticket punched before you gotta get a new one, and we can't get new brains. You know, we're stuck with what we got, and brain damage, man. I actually just wrote an article for my internship at shout out to Herald Community Newspapers. It was regarding football concussions. I just published this article on that, and it's about the second impact trauma that really hurts guys. Second impact trauma, which is getting concussed when you're recovering from the first concussion, or getting successive concussions without having time to recover in time. And it's also just how many you've gotten in your career. Like, it's they say that why guys, they get knocked out faster when they've been knocked out before is because your brain, it's a self-protective mechanism your brain develops for it to just shut down your body right away so that you're not exposed to more shots, because your brain knows that, hey, this guy right now, he's getting hurt, but he's not gonna stop, he's gonna keep on fighting. We gotta just shut everything off right now to just protect ourselves. That's what it's thinking.
Oh, wow.
It's like how your laptop reboots when it gets overheated. That's why Chuck started to get knocked out by punches he would have eaten like they were Kit Kats early in his career. Later on, when he was about to retire, it's just the way it is, man. There's no way to recover. All the psychos. I'm stammering like a psycho right now.
The neurons?
Yeah, no, all of the neuropsychologists that I've interviewed.
Oh, okay, listen.
Yeah, they've told me that there isn't any physical treatments to repair people that have suffered severe brain trauma. Chronic brain trauma. There's no treatment to help them physically get better from that. Cognitively, it's even a more complicated issue. Now, we're talking about a whole other subject here, but bottom line is Conor McGregor's power is going to be a big factor in this fight, more so than Siver, who I don't think has as much power. And by the way, Conor McGregor throws very good kicks too. There aren't traditional Thai kicks. They're actually more in the grain of how Siver throws them, which is vertically up. He doesn't chamber his kicks. He doesn't telegraph them. He doesn't actually really step out with his lead foot to really torque his hips and then take that, you know, deep plunge out to his up and to the left to really, he's a southpaw, so up and to his right to throw his rear kick. He just throws it from his stance. Right there, pop. And he wants to, yeah, exactly. And in doing so, he's making you guessing. He's pushing you towards now his right side, where he can now attack you. But again, everything works in relation. Jumping uppercuts, jumping lead uppercuts, and jumping jabs. So, I gotta go with Conor McGregor on this one. With all this being said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta go with Conor McGregor, of course. No Dennis Siver.
I just hope that
he doesn't get knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that Dennis Siver stays in there long enough to where we can see more of Conor McGregor fight. Not just from a fan's perspective, but just so I can see a little trailer to how he'll do against Jose Aldo.
Is this a 5-rounder or a 3?
It's a 5-rounder because it's a main event.
Yeah, it is the main event. That's true. So, what round do you think Dennis Siver is going to get knocked out?
Oh, man.
I feel like talking a little bit of smack now.
I mean, Conor hasn't gone past the first round in the... No, he has gone... He went to decision in the UFC. I say second round.
Second round?
Early in the second round. I think the reason is because Siver's going to prevent takedowns or... I'm sorry. Siver's going to commence takedowns and prevent Conor from getting his striking game really going in the first round enough for him to have time to land enough shots. But I think early second round, Conor's going to adjust.
All right, you heard it from the clinch.
I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, I don't speak for both of us.
I really agree with you. I think you might get knocked out in the second round. I really see it playing out like that, where Siver's going to try more for the takedowns in the first round. In the second round, he's going to start striking, and he's just going to get caught. And he's going to be laying down on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, let me just run you some stats right here. So I'm looking at some stats right now on the UFC page, and Conor McGregor has thrown 266 strikes, and he's landed 101 of them, which is a 38% success rate. He's committed 6 takedowns and gotten 5 of them, which is an 83% success rate. So that's Conor McGregor. Now Siver, who has been fighting longer in the UFC, so it wouldn't surprise me if his stats aren't as good, because there's just more room for mistakes in a sense because he has a longer UFC career. But Siver actually has thrown 2,234 punches so far in the UFC, landed 712 of them, which is a 32% success rate. He has committed 32 takedowns, landed 13 of them, and 36% success rate. So I think it's interesting how Conor McGregor, with much fewer fights than Siver, has only a 6% edge when it comes to successful strikes, both on the ground and standing up, versus Siver, who has 32%. It could also be because Siver has landed ground and pound, which is a lot easier to land and more accurate to land. But that is impressive. That is impressive, because Conor McGregor is an accurate striker, especially with a shot that you really wouldn't think it would be, which is his left hook. He has a murderous left hook. And he doesn't wing it. He doesn't telegraph it. It actually almost comes in the same trajectory as his cross forward, and at the very end he turns it. That's how he knocked out Poirier across and behind the ear.
Does the UFC statisticians count feints? That's what I'm wondering.
Feints?
Or like they count strikes that are not really meant to hit the opponent, but to set up for something else.
I don't think they do that. I mean, that's a hard job, though. I don't think they keep track of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, now that we wrapped up the Conor McGregor Siver breakdown, let's give our fans a little intermission, and we'll be back to discuss the potential match between McGregor and Jose Aldo. Stay tuned. Thank you guys for checking out our first episode of Season 3. We hope you're enjoying the discussion so far. And it would be great if you guys could please follow us on Facebook at All Kickboxing, on Twitter at All Kickboxing _, on YouTube at AKB space All Kickboxing, on Instagram at All Kickboxing, and we're also available on SureDog, All Kickboxing of course, on MMA Underground, as well as Bloody Elbow. And Rico, could you what's that little website we got? What's that nice little sexy website we got?
Long website, isn't it? allkickboxing.wix.com/allkickboxing. Am I right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. So it would be great if you guys could check us out in all those places, and keep tuning in for our episodes, because we have a lot more good stuff for you guys. So that is it, and back to the show. So we're back with episode number 1 of the Clinch Season 3, where we're going to discuss Conor McGregor's potential match versus Jose Aldo for the UFC featherweight title. Now, the UFC is saying that it's locked, that if Conor McGregor beats Siver, especially in impressive fashion, he's going to get Aldo. In perhaps Ireland in a football stadium for the title. Now, that's not sure yet, but he's going to get Aldo. What are your thoughts, just to start off, on that matchup?
Versus Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo?
Yes.
Ooh, you got me there. It's going to happen, I believe. It's definitely going to happen. What Jose Aldo really needs to worry about, because Jose Aldo fights Orthodox Southpaw.
Orthodox.
He fights Orthodox. It's the same thing that every fighter who was Orthodox fighting Conor McGregor had to worry about, which is him controlling the opponent's lead hand and him slipping over and catching him with the left. One thing I really know about Jose Aldo is ability to slip punches himself, and he has good boxing. So he might be able to escape that left hand a couple of times. And I also know that Jose Aldo has a vicious leg kick. And he's known for that Muay Thai leg kick. So he might be able to take out that front leg of Conor McGregor when they face off. So those are the things that might come into play when Jose Aldo fights Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are... I think that people are counting like Jose Aldo out, to be honest, in this fight. Like, there's so much hype behind McGregor, and he's doing interesting and new things in the cage that they're counting out like the king that's been at the top for like ever. You know, Jose Aldo's been champion since the WEC merged with the UFC. Like, wow. So with experience, championship experience, of course, it goes without saying, there comes a level of... Conor McGregor has to rise to the occasion. Jose Aldo doesn't have to rise to this as much as Conor McGregor does. Make no mistake about that. For Conor McGregor, this is the biggest opportunity of his lifetime. Jose Aldo, much like how I thought this was the X factor that really separated John Jones and Dan Cormier, he has championship experience. He's been in, I think, wars, especially in his last fight against Mendes, Jose Aldo I'm speaking about, than Conor McGregor has had. Albeit Conor McGregor has lost twice to submissions, and Aldo actually only lost once to submissions via rear naked choke. Both guys know what it's like to taste defeat, but at the same time, Aldo's been he's been tested, and we've seen his mettle. And now, from a tactical standpoint, I think why people are worried about Aldo's chances in this fight is because he stands orthodoxy as a southpaw fighter, which people say is going to neutralize Aldo's heavy leg kicking game with Aldo's rear foot, his rear kick. I don't think that's necessarily so cut and dry like that. Granted, there was a fight actually where Conor McGregor back in Ireland, he stopped the fighter with a leg check. This was against Conor Dillon back in 2010, and he stopped him in the first round with a leg check. Conor checked it with his lead knee, TKO victory. Can the same thing happen against Aldo? I don't think it'll be as easy because Aldo's on a whole nother level. Aldo's ability to throw leg kicks isn't just simply his power. It's his ability to time it. His ability to do it when his opponent is coming in, and he is actually able to kick that leg when his opponent has weight placed on it when they commit to a punch, especially their rear punch. Aldo uses his kicks sometimes even as setups for his punches. And he doesn't telegraph them at all. Aldo has multiple variations of his leg kick that I think is going to be much more successful than other orthodox fighters would be throwing that same kick against Conor's inside left thigh. Now, Conor McGregor has to, obviously do what Chris Weidman did against Anderson Silva, which Chris Weidman called it the destruction, that proactive leg check with the knee. So how much do you think Aldo is going to have a problem with having his best weapon perhaps neutralized?
I don't know if it's going to be neutralized per se. I think Aldo is going to be really good at timing that kick. And I think he'll be ready for Conor McGregor trying to check his kicks. And even though it's money in the bank, I really think that Jose Aldo is going to use it sparingly and not just throw it, just to throw it. And like you said, that Jose Aldo uses the leg kicks to set up for punching. He might just use that to set up for leg kicks because that's really his strength. That really is Conor McGregor's strength, is his legs, and if you take that out, then Conor McGregor is out.
Exactly. You're right. Conor McGregor does sit down heavily on his legs. We always say his base is boxing, and he enjoys throwing those very unorthodox kicks. So if you take his wheels out, it'll be devastating for him. Now, from a broader scope, I think there's similarities between how both guys fight. It's just the way they impose it is different. While Conor McGregor is willing to get a reaction out of his opponent through more subtle and maybe passive means by using the lead hand control, the soft rear punch, the feints, baits, and unorthodox kicks, Jose Aldo forces reactions out of his opponents more, I think, with actually power shots. And how Aldo forces reactions out of his opponents is actually with a very good jab that he's developed throughout his championship reign in the UFC. He's polished up this jab. It's essentially what... it's actually kind of what saved him against Frankie Edgar. Like, without that jab, he would have lost actually that fight, that very competitive fight against Frankie Edgar. Another, by the way, future UFC Hall of Famer that Aldo has beaten. Aldo actually has multiple variations off it. He's very versatile with the jab. It's long, and he throws it like a ramrod spear right through his opponent. So, that is actually why Jose Aldo right now is my favorite fighter, as much as I love Conor McGregor, because I just love how he forces the situation, but at the same time, it is very strategic. Now, you were talking about Jose Aldo's ability to slip punches. Let me read you his stats right here.
All right.
This is the percentage of total strikes avoided in the UFC. 72% for Jose Aldo.
What?
For Conor McGregor is 69. Now, wrap your head around that. Jose Aldo, that means he's defended 72% of strikes both standing and on the ground. Meanwhile, Conor McGregor has only had a handful of fights, but it's already lower by 3%. Now, look at Jose Aldo. This is why he's able to prevent getting hit on the floor. Jose Aldo has a 91% takedown defense rate. 91%.
91.
Yeah.
And 10% of the time you take him down. That is crazy.
Yeah. And in fact, Jose Aldo's total striking both on the ground and standing up, because we've seen Jose Aldo actually ground and pound guys. Like, he did that against... He does it to finish fights. He did that against Mark Hominick, and he had him badly hurt and rocked. It was pretty much all the fight against my boy, the Korean Zombie, who I'm going to have lunch with after this. I'm joking. Yeah, Jose Aldo actually fought like a very good wrestler in that fight, and he employed a lot of good ground and pound. Jose Aldo's total successful strikes, 44%. Conor's is 38%. So, that gives Aldo... people underestimate just how hard it is to hit Jose Aldo, I think. Like, it is... that guy... There's a reason why his striking game, his offensive tools and athletic gifts is only enhanced by his defense, which he's really polished up later on in his career now. That is why he doesn't fight the way he did in the WEC. Guys want him to fight like vintage Jose Aldo with double flying knees and swarming out against the cage with like left, right hooks. What are your thoughts when it comes to styles between the two guys? Do you see similarities, differences, anything that you think was going to play a big factor in this?
The main similarity that I see between both of them is that they're both counter fighters now.
No, I wouldn't say Conor McGregor is more of a counter fighter. Aldo is more of a pressuring puncher who also fights aggressively. Aldo's ability to take the initiative with strikes and aggression more. And it'll be interesting how he does that without the use... I'm sorry, I shouldn't say without, but without the ease, as usual, to use his favorite weapon, the right low kick. But I think what Aldo can do is use the jab to use his punches to set up his kicks, which he's always been able to do very well. The one Aldo matchup that really spoke to me how this fight might look was Aldo versus Kenny Florian. And Kenny Florian was a big featherweight because he was dropping down from... Florian fucking wasn't the Ultimate Fighter House fighting at middleweight, dude. And then he dropped to 145 to fight Aldo. And Aldo would take the outside angle very efficiently with punches. He would, in one exchange, which I think is going to... I think it is what he has to do in this fight, which is he would throw the right kick, fuck the getting the leg check. He would kick Kenny Florian on the inside left thigh, and that would off-balance Florian and made him square. That squared up Florian's shoulders and his head to where he was now facing Aldo completely, and then Aldo was able to launch 1-2, like combinations with his punches after that. The kicks were merely a setup to put his opponent out of position for his punches. Now, we haven't seen guys really realize the benefits of really kicking that inside leg. It is not only very painful because the vein that is running through there, but also because it really squares your opponent up, more so than if you kick him the other way to where he's now facing and looking away from you with his back and shoulder protecting his chin. The key is to do it accurately and not to get checked. What are your thoughts?
Kicking the inside leg is definitely much more painful. And not only does it square you up, but it takes away your movement more efficiently as opposed to the outside leg kick. You can get kicked in the outside leg and you'll be still able to function even after a few kicks. But if you get kicked significantly on the inside of the leg, it hurts like a bitch. And it really takes away some of your movement because it hurts when you step down on it. And I've witnessed this in pairing in the gym when I'm practicing drills and the person that's my partner would kick the inside of my leg hard, it will hurt. And I'm not even moving around. I would step down on the leg and I would feel the pain shoot up my thigh.
Yeah. It's actually, I think, a very underrated tactic. And I think when it comes to, if you want to win a striking exchange in any sense, you have to be willing to fight your opponent where he's best at. Not to beat him at it, not to one-up him in that field, but simply to be competitive in it to where you can drag the fight into an area where you're the best at. For instance, we were talking about our fight against John, who is the best boxer in the Stony Brook Kickboxing Club. And we were saying how we never want to fight in boxing range with him because that is not where we're strong at. We want to be on the outside kicking or up close where we can infight or we can use the clinch, something he's not used to. But in completely giving up a layer, a range of fighting, that is a very defeatist attitude. Now, yeah.
And he's fighting us where we're best at. So...
Yeah, exactly. He's being competitive at where we're best at, forcing us to really fight him in that boxing range. So you got to do the same thing against him too. It's a constant tug of war. When you see technical striking, it is a constant tug of war between the two guys. That is very interesting to see how it plays out because it's like a lot of times mental and silent. Yeah, thoughts?
No, I definitely agree with you with those points that you really need to fight your opponent where you're best at, where he's best at, in order to stay competitive. John Jones did that with Cormier in the fight, but he really won up him too. As a matter of fact, he really out-wrestled him in that fight. And you never know. Just because you assume that somebody is good at a specific set of fighting doesn't mean you shouldn't test those waters, because maybe in that one fight you might actually do better and overcome him at his best game.
Yes, I think what John Jones did was another form of where you can accomplish this tactic we're talking about, being competitive in something that's outside your comfort zone, which is he fought Cormier in the places where he's comfortable at, John Jones I'm talking about, which is either on the far kicking range or really up close in that infighting clinch range where John would just eat him up with knees to the body and elbows. And as Cormier had his stamina dwindled because of especially those knees to the body, he said in the press conference after that those knees took a lot out of him. He admitted to that. He pointed it out specifically. So later on, John Jones not only was stopping Cormier's takedowns better, but was actually engaging the takedowns on a weak and diminished opponent. So he beat him at where he was best at, avoided where Cormier was best at. But then again, the flip side is because he fought in that kind of a conservative approach, Cormier actually landed great punches from boxing range. Cormier landed great uppercuts and overhand rights whenever John would clinch with him or be in that inside range. And Cormier was actually trying to beat John at times in the beginning by kicking him in that far outside range. Now, I feel that... And I'm sorry, any thoughts?
No, I definitely agree with you, everything you said. I couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah, GSP was a master at doing this. GSP would really not want to fight you where you're the best at. He would actually use his the threat of the jab to mask his takedowns, because it's the same setup. His jab is the same setup for how his takedowns look before he goes for the shot. So he had constant threat of level changes at the invisible risk of takedowns, and he would take strikers like Dan Hardy, Thiago Alves, Carlos Condit down, and then later on he would just light him up. He dropped Thiago Alves, I remember. He beat Dan Hardy up later on in the feet. So I think the problem with fighting in this style against Conor McGregor is that Conor simply has, I think, too much knockout power to play this long-term game. The longer you make your fights go, the more conservative your approach is to go for the long-haul decision, the more vulnerable you are to damage. The more chances and literal time there is for you to get hurt. That's absolutely true. That's why I think this approach against Conor McGregor can be dangerous against any fighter. Because Conor has shown that he can go the distance for 3 rounds. I know it's not 5 full championship fight rounds. But against Max Holloway, Conor McGregor pulled out 3 rounds, made an adjustment to where he became a wrestler because he blew out his ACL mid-fight. He blew out his ACL in the middle of that fight and decided to, instead of stand up and where he could get badly hurt, just take the guy down where he could rest that knee. So what does that let me know? Conor McGregor is a very well-conditioned athlete. And he can go the full 5 rounds and is able to actually perhaps withstand that grueling war of attrition better than most guys think. And that's why this tactical approach of beating him where he's best so that you can beat him where you're best and at the end of the fight won't work out. You have to be competitive from the get-go where Conor's best at, which is boxing range. And what are your thoughts? Do you think Jose Aldo, with his very much improved boxing right now, especially with his ability to slip and move his head and avoid punches, do you think he'll have an edge over Conor McGregor boxing?
If not an edge, they'll be up to par. I think in terms of boxing, Jose Aldo will be Conor McGregor's biggest challenge yet. He won't be able to taunt Jose Aldo with the "why you letting me hit you with those shots" so easily, because we already know that Jose Aldo is very hard to hit, and it's really going to be a challenge for Conor McGregor. It's not going to be a walk in the park, and he's not going to hit him at will, to be quite honest. And we're going to see that. We're going to really see a good. It's going to be a striking match between the both of them, and it's going to be entertaining. And both of them are going to tag each other. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. It could become a kickboxing match with MMA gloves, but I think Aldo is smart enough to where I wouldn't be surprised if he takes him down.
Yeah, that's it.
I think Aldo is actually a better wrestler than Siver. I think Aldo is going to be the best wrestler Conor McGregor's ever faced. Aldo has shown impressive takedowns against Chan Sung Jung, against Mark Hominick. I think even against Kenny Florian, he actually was able to take him down at one point. But the reason is because you're so concerned about his stand-up, you don't really expect him to go for a shot, and there he goes. Again, it's the benefits of being well-rounded, which I think is going to play a big factor and advantage for Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo, I think, is a more well-rounded fighter. Although Conor McGregor might have a plethora of kicks to throw, Aldo is a BJJ black belt. Aldo can threaten level changes with takedowns. And also, I think Aldo is going to be privy to the southpaw tricks and tactics of Conor McGregor, which is the best example of this was the inside slip into the left cross, where he's essentially, Conor McGregor is baiting his righty opponents to take that outside angle to counter him. Aldo is not going to do that. Aldo, what he can't do is be thinking, man, should I be taking this outside angle? Is he baiting me right now? Should I take it? Should I not? He can't be in that mode, because that's when Conor's going to clock you. That's a lot of times how setups like that work, baits work. Like Jacare Souza versus Yushin Okami was a perfect example where Jacare is known for having a heavy overhand right, and he was giving Okami that angle, that outside angle all the time. Okami stands southpaw. So Okami was like, oh, I'm not going to take that outside angle because I know when I take it, he's going to counter me back. But then eventually, because he didn't take that angle, Jacare took it. And then he knocked him out with the overhand right. So you can't be in the mindset that your opponent imposes on you. So Aldo, I think we're going to actually see what we haven't seen anyone really do against Conor, which is rear side power kicks to his body and to the head. I think Aldo is going to be able to land those because he has a much better kicks. He has much better understanding of when to throw them, how to throw them. And if he neutralizes Conor McGregor's angle tactics, he's going to be able to take that outside angle and does what he does best with his power kicks. So I also think, how much do you think kick to Conor's outside lead leg is going to play a factor with Jose Aldo's left kick? Because he's shown in fights in the UFC before, he can kick just as hard with that left switch or with that left pendulum kick as hard as his right almost.
So it's going to be it might be easier for him, would it be?
The problem with it is that
he'll be kicking to the outside.
Yes.
He'll be kicking to the outside of that leg. It might work in his favor a lot. Whereas it'll be harder to check a little bit, and it's less of a distance to travel. So it's also money in the bank in that essence. So you could kick that outside leg without risking too much. Whereas if he's trying to kick the lead leg with his right rear, he might catch the knee of Conor McGregor. And since you said it's been shown that Jose Aldo can really cause damage with that leg, it might also be a best fit to throw that leg instead of the right rear leg. The rear leg.
Yeah. Also, do you think? You know, Jose Aldo has shown that he can make adjustments on the fly. Like in the first round against Korean Zombie, you know, Aldo fractured his right on the top of his right foot. He's fractured the top of his right foot because he caught Chan Sung Jung on the knee with a kick.
Ooh.
So you can see in pictures in the middle of the fight when Aldo's trying to rush for a takedown, his right top of the foot is like swollen badly. So he wasn't kicking at all with that foot in that fight. He was taking Chan Sung Jung down and kicking him with left kicks, at times even from a southpaw stance.
Was he doing leg kicks?
Yeah, he wasn't doing leg kicks actually. When he really started to throw those was actually after Korean Zombie popped out his shoulder, and then Aldo saw this guy is completely vulnerable, and then he threw I think 3 successive left high kicks from a southpaw position to finish him. He can throw with his left very well, so I think it's gonna be interesting because Conor McGregor relies on his opponents to get instigated via his aggression, via his shit talking, via his feints and baits, and if Aldo doesn't commence on Conor's terms and makes Conor commence on his terms, which Aldo's better at, I think, because he is more aggressive in that approach, Aldo's going to win. Now, we'll have to see what adjustments Conor makes. And when it comes to sheer power, who do you think, this is a very, like, I don't know, silly question, but who do you think has more power?
Maybe Conor McGregor has a little bit more power because he's taller and he's big for the weight class.
But Aldo's big for the weight class, too. I mean...
Yeah, that's true. Aldo is big for the weight class, too. I don't know, to be honest. I really don't know.
Aldo stands at 5'7". Conor stands, according to the UFC site, at 5'9". And I'm not sure about the reach difference.
I think Conor McGregor definitely has the reach advantage.
Yeah.
I think Conor McGregor might be a little bit stronger.
Well, I think, yeah.
But nothing to the point where he's going to overpower Jose Aldo by any means.
Do you think if Conor hits Aldo with the same shot he landed against Poirier, he's going to knock Aldo out?
I think it'll rock him. I don't think he'll be knocked out. Has he ever been knocked out?
No, he's never been knocked out. He got dropped several times against Chad Mendes.
That would be crazy if he gets knocked out.
Yo, because this is why I am confident in Aldo's chin, is because he fought Chad Mendes, who's an explosive power puncher, at times in that fight when it was like the worst time to get hit. Like the first time I've ever seen Aldo get dropped was in that fight. It's the first round. Aldo goes for one of his best moves, which is the rear uppercut, but he throws it from too far out, and I'm sure Mendes and Dwayne Ludwig drilled this, where they slip it and then they counter with a left hook through that opening. It dropped Aldo when it was completely off balance, and with a punch that really came from a blind angle that he didn't see coming. Aldo gets right back up though. Now later on in the fight,
Chad Mendes is a little powerful kid too.
Chad Mendes from like that range has tremendous punching power. So now I know he just came after this big war, so maybe his ability to take shots might be a bit more diminished against McGregor, but we've never seen McGregor get hit really. But granted, I said early in the podcast how that stance is more conducive to absorbing punishment. McGregor's spine is has good posture and his ability to support his vertebrae. So I think this is gonna be, if it takes place, which is it's gonna be the biggest fight of 2015.
We don't have to set any predictions yet. Let's save that for the next episode.
I think we should make predictions now.
Okay.
That's the thing. Like, Conor McGregor, if he's telling me he has problems cutting weight, do you think he's gonna gas out? Much like how we've seen Aldo gas up because of his weight cutting issues and getting mounted and like really giving sometimes the 5th round to his opponent. He did that against Ricardo Lamas. He got that against Hominick.
Yeah, I heard that he's known for gassing out Jose Aldo. Maybe Conor McGregor will gas out, but not as much as Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor is very lanky, so I think he does have a struggle cutting weight, but not as bad as Jose Aldo. And it's been proven that that Conor McGregor could last long. Not the championship rounds. We haven't seen that yet, but I think he'll probably We'll see him gas out a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna be anything tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, there in the Chad Mendes fight, it was actually very interesting. It was kind of tragic in a sense for Mendes because Mendes took down Aldo in the 4th round. His really like first successful takedown and really holding and controlling him on the floor. That was pretty much most of the 4th round. And by doing that, he actually was giving Aldo time to rest for Aldo to come back guns blazing in the 5th round and win the fight like that.
Oh, wow.
It was like a double-edged sword. So what does that say to me? It says to me that Aldo might still have problems with his stamina later in the fight because he gave not the 5th round up, but maybe the 4th round up just for that final burst in the 5th. But again, there's a lot of things here that we can talk about. But when it comes to Conor McGregor, do you think mentally he's ready to fight the greatest featherweight of all time?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I think Conor McGregor is mentally ready to fight. His mind is there. I think he's so confident in taking on Jose Aldo that he's mentally there. That can change in the fight. But at the moment, yeah, he is not sweating Jose Aldo. He's not stressed. He says it so many times. He says in his mind he's already number one. In his mind he already has the belt around his waist. So to have that kind of confidence is very helpful leading towards a fight.
Yeah, I agree, but then I also agree with what Mike Tyson said, which is everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Man, okay, I want to close on this. Do you think Conor McGregor's like bravado and him like talking about his confidence and like saying how he's gonna obliterate this division? No, he said, I don't see nobody in this division moves like me, fights like me, thinks like me, or talks like me. Do you think him saying all this shit is in a way like him trying to hype himself up, trying to like psych himself up to to these big pressure fights, or do you think it's just who he is? Because I always feel that like if you're confident, you don't have to express it in your language. Much like how Fedor approached his fights. Fedor knew he was gonna school those guys at Pride and didn't say a word. So what do you think?
Hell yeah, he does that. He does that too. I think he has a little bit of confidence, and he also says it because he knows it sells. And he's explicitly said this time and time again that even though he's not a championship, he's not a champion. He's new to the UFC, relatively new compared to other fighters. He sells so much more in pay-per-view. Didn't he sell more than Demetrius Johnson?
Oh yeah, I think against Ali Balatinov, yeah. Yeah,
he sold more than that, and he's well aware of what he's doing. I read an article a while back. I don't know where I read it from, but Jose Aldo was complaining to Dana White that he wasn't getting paid enough. It's true. He said he wasn't getting paid enough, and Dana White was like, yeah, you're the champion, but you need to bring exciting fights, and so forth and so forth. And you do gas out, and he doesn't really sell himself as much as some other fighters do. And Conor McGregor knows damn well that he's selling himself. Dana White knows it. Everybody knows it. It's like, it is a business at the end of the day.
Yeah, dude, like, what I love about him is that he understands that this is a business. Like, he understands there's a brief window of time for a fighter to make a big mark in the sport to where afterwards he's going to be well off with some sort of like return on investment. So I'm going to play you a clip. I'm going to play you a clip of him. This was before he got triangle choked and lost in his second ever loss in his MMA career. He was talking mad shit even when he was like young. Listen to him. This is, by the way, this is when he was 22 years old. Listen to him.
At this level, I feel like I can do anything. I can feel like I can fight any way I want. At the moment, I've been really focused on my wrestling and my Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, and it's coming along leaps and bounds.
So, he's been like this for a long time.
Yeah.
He sounds kind of different than that, though. He's like, I'm going to beat him. Yeah, but, yeah. So, I think we're set. So, we're going for Conor McGregor against Siver. And Aldo and McGregor, I'm picking... Shit. If it's in Ireland, I don't think that's going to really be a big factor. I gotta go with Aldo. How can you not go with Aldo? I mean, he's like, you know, tried and tested. Like,
yeah, I have to go with Aldo with that. Definitely.
I think it's simply because Aldo is going to be the first guy who's going to challenge Conor with his power, with his striking, and Aldo is more well-rounded. Which you have to, I think, kind of realize Conor McGregor isn't so much, maybe he isn't so much well-rounded as he is unorthodox and experimental. There's a big difference there, you know. And any closing thoughts?
Stay tuned. Watch this fight between Siver and Conor McGregor, because you know what's coming up next is going to be Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo, and we covered just about everything.
Yeah, we really did. I mean, yeah. So, so guys, thank you for checking out our show, and we'll be back with another episode for you. But for now, we hope you enjoyed the podcast season number 3, episode 1. And please check us out on Facebook at All Kickboxing, on Twitter at All Kickboxing _, on YouTube at AKB space All Kickboxing, on Instagram at All Kickboxing. We're also available on SureDog and on MMA Underground, as well as Bloody Elbow. Our website, which you can find on, goddamn, I am such a capitalist, son. I'm like, our website is allkickboxing.wix.com/allkickboxing, and you can find that in our social media link somewhere. So thank you very much for listening, and that's it. Peace out.
Later.
Truck necklace, igloo, ringing things for the bitches. You see them rims spinning grin, that shit with the B trimmed and wings. Heavy and larger, silver spurs to rap. On the road to the riches, more furs to drag. More niggas to kill, then birds to bag. Hit the jeweler and splurge the tab. Hops out the truck like Trick, what up? Call me Sean if you suck, call me gone when I nut. That's the end of us. Get your friend to fuck, twist and bend her up. You know the deal, niggas talking real busy on some ballin' shit. Funny how quick these pricks forget. Acting like I ain't the reason they traded they shit. Switch that 5.